Paris in my undergrad and was working a job that I didn't like, started looking at master's programs and came across it online, started looking into it, reached out to some of the professors, and it seemed like the program for me. So took the opportunity to come back to France and to broaden my horizons.
Perfect. Okay.
So my name is Fio, and I go by Fio. I'm the only undergrad on this panel. I am half American, half Chinese. I've spent an equal amount of time living in Boston and Beijing. I decided to come over to AUP because 9 years in any country was about enough for me, so I wasn't about to go back to the US, and staying in China didn't feel like the right move for me at the time, and AUP allowed me to get an American education without having to be back in the US. So I decided to broaden my horizons, take the French I had learned in high school, and try to do something with it for real. And now here I am, self-designing a major in sociocultural translation, minoring in French and linguistics, and going into my 5th semester and my second junior semester.
Okay, perfect. So do you guys mind sharing with us a little bit about your experience first moving to France, and what that was like? Did you find it challenging? Did you find that you had to adapt to a new culture and a new language, or was it pretty easy?
I think the second move was fine for me, knowing what I expected, but definitely the first time in 2015 that I came here, I remember I studied 2 years of French in undergrad. I had a French professor. She was great. I could have conversations with her at a very high level. And I remember getting here and they put us on a shuttle. I went to my host mom's. It was a very long travel, so I was very tired and jet lagged. And I remember I was on a train trying to get to my programs building, and I had this French woman screaming at me, and everything I had ever learned in French just vanished. I couldn't say a single word. I was terrified. I realized at a moment of like, why did I do this? And then it was like about a week later that I started getting a rhythm of it. You start figuring out the transportation system. You start figuring out there's a lot of amazing things to do in Paris, and it starts to come back to you, whether you learned French or not prior. I've learned that you really don't need French to be here. It's most people will speak English or be able to work with you to understand what you're saying. So it was a little bit of an easier transition after about a week. So I think a lot of students have that same kind of transition where at first it's kind of a shock, and then they start to go into their routine and it becomes normal life.
I think for me it was kind of interesting because I decided to come to AUP without having ever have set foot in Europe before. I didn't do campus visits. I had never gone on vacation to England or Italy or France or Spain or anything like that. I never set foot in Europe, and I only applied to one school, and I ended up here. And so I didn't really know what to expect. But coming from sort of an international background and going to international schools a lot, I sort of was used to the whole adapt to a new situation type of lifestyle. So I don't think it was too super jarring for me. I think I was already sort of put into the mindset of like, you're just gonna need to adjust to all the nuances of living in a country that you've never been to before. For example, the fact that everything's closed on Sunday. That's a nuance that'll kick you in the shins if you don't know about it when you get here, because you don't do groceries on Saturday and then you just don't eat on Sunday because everything's closed. But no, in all seriousness, I think it's not that drastic a move, and like Cody was saying, I don't think it takes too much linguistic ability for you to be able to come here, and as long as people here see that you're trying even just a little bit, I think it's really appreciated, and it goes a long way to sort of integrating you into the culture and allowing you the opportunity to sort of get around and try new things and get the most out of the city without being a linguist or a French speaker.
I'd have to agree with everything that's already been said. I had already studied abroad, but that initial experience was definitely a culture shock. I got my passport specifically to study abroad, so it was the first time I had left the country, didn't do much traveling outside of Florida, and so getting over this different social norms of not being spoken to until you said bonjour in a boulangerie or anywhere you go, it's very specific, and there's just weird unspoken rules that once you kind of get into the culture, get into the city, then you understand them and you respect them. But there's just that initial transition. I would say that because Paris is such an international major city, though, that transition is not that bad. It's not that drastic for other students coming in.
So how good is your French now?
So I think I'm in a little bit of a different story because my program specifically required studying at the Sorbonne, and so I was constantly involved in speaking French. I think the biggest marker for me was participating in the École de Guerre last year and kind of being a little lost in communicating with different people in that specific college, and then participating again this year and kind of seeing how my vocabulary and my comprehension has skyrocketed in comparing to very specific things across a 1-year period. So definitely speaking French, learning French is something that you get out of it what you put in. So if you don't practice, if you don't insist on speaking, then you definitely won't learn anything, but it's a matter of sticking to it, watching TV, listening to the radio, and just being really proactive about learning the language.
Yeah, I would say I studied it for 2 years in my undergrad, and then I did a semester at the Institut Catholique de Paris here in Paris, and that was all completely in French. If we ever even said an English word, my teacher would, nope, en français s'il vous plaît. So it was very strict, and then I didn't use it for like 3 years, and I came back, and I have a very high level of comprehension. I understand 90% of what's being said to me. It's a matter of responding. That's my problem. I can understand you, but I cannot tell you what I think. Usually very well. I can get my point across, but it's definitely not correct grammar.
For me, I spent 3 years with a sadistic French woman in high school, one-on-one, just being verbally abused into learning the French language. So I think that elevated my linguistic ability rather abnormally quickly, just because I had to. But after coming to France, I would say that I thought I was good when I got here, but looking back, I think there's been a drastic increase, again, like Cody was saying, in my ability, and like Nicole was saying, and just sort of being willing to like push people to speak to me in French and push myself to speak French in situations where it would be easier to speak English. The fact that you walk into a grocery store and you'll talk to the worker in French and they'll respond back in English, but you need to push them to keep speaking to you in French. It's just sort of, it's a daily battle that you need to commit to. And I think AUP sort of allows you to either sort of continue that battle and improve your French, or allow you to live in a bubble if you're not comfortable and you don't really want to push your language ability, and that's not a priority of yours, then you can just as easily never have to leave campus, never leave comforts of home, and just speak English all the time.
But I think what's unique about you, Fio, is that you've ventured out into the working world and gotten jobs in environments that require you to speak French. So you took the initiative, you wanted to learn French, you wanted to get a job outside of the AUP bubble, and that, I'm sure, has really skyrocketed your...
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. I think that's a fair point. And also, even within the AUP bubble, I think I chose to work with the university in terms of doing student government and stuff like that, and having contacts that are outside the university to help with this aspect of my life. The fact that I was working with French event companies to help plan like the back to school party and stuff like that, that really helped push my French as well in terms of building a working vocabulary for me. So I think you're right. I think definitely it's been a big priority for me since I got here, and that's why I'm minoring in French. And so it's been a lot easier for me to stay on track and push myself to these different situations where I'm focusing on the amelioration of my disability.
Yeah, and I think that, like Nicole said, it's really what you get in, you get out what you put in. So I've stuck myself, unlike Fio, into a bubble of working for admissions and as GSE as well, but as comms, so I only send emails in English, and I only give tours in English, and it's never an opportunity to use it. And I can go into a blancherie and talk to them, and I know what they're saying, and I can respond to them, but that's because that's part of my normal life. If I want a baguette, I have to know how to ask for it. If I want specific cheese, I have to know how to ask for that. But when I was participating in Nicole Curren as well, it was situations of like, I know what you want, but I can't respond because I spend my time reading and watching TV, and so my comprehension's high. But even though Nicole's actually my roommate, she speaks French, we refuse to talk to each other in French, and that would be a great opportunity for me, but we just drop into that English habit.
We've made the rule so many times to speak in French, and then 2 minutes later it's back into English. Not on purpose, it's just a habit.
No, I think that's very indicative of what it's like living here in general, is that like you can tell yourself that next time you go to the boulangerie, you're gonna speak to them only in French. But then as soon as they respond to you in English, you're in that catch-22 of, do I like be willing to look like an idiot, maybe make a mistake in French, or do I just fall into the comfort of allowing them to come to me and speak to me in my language? And I think it's the same whether it's friends or whether it's day-to-day situations or professional situations or otherwise. So it's really an individual case by case in terms of what you're looking for out of the linguistic experience.
Okay, great. So you mentioned, Fio, that you work outside of campus. Do you mind just talking a little bit more about that and what kind of opportunities there are for students to work off campus? We do have a community service grant program on campus that a lot of students can participate in to help reduce tuition fees, but there are also opportunities to work off campus. So you are a good example of finding part-time work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really common question when people are coming here. I think especially students coming from the U.S., it's a very common culture to have a part-time job at the same time that you're doing your studies. And I think AUP does a good job of allowing you to continue that if that's something that's important to you. If you need the money on the side, like many of us do, especially if you're pulling out loans for college. But yeah, I've done a number of different kinds of off-campus work. I think one of the most common is either babysitting or teaching English. I did that for about a semester and a half. That was another case where I had to speak French with the parents because they didn't speak English, and then I was speaking English with the children, trying to teach them. It's a very specific line of work. It's not always easy trying to teach 7-year-olds a foreign language, but it's relatively easy money. I would work for about an hour a week and get paid 15, 20 euros just to go in and talk and play board games with the kids. So I think that's a very, very common thing, building sort of a roster of 2 or 3 different kids that you tutor and doing that throughout the week. I've also worked in restaurants and cafes. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of different options. In terms of working in restaurants, a lot of people ask me if I had to speak French. The places that I went, it was actually kind of ironic because I spoke more English with my managers at those restaurants than I did at school almost. I speak more French in classes than I do with the managers at that restaurant. But there are also typical French cafes where nobody's going to speak any English, or there's specifically I'm thinking of the Canadian pub that's on the quay. It's right by Notre Dame, I think, and it's they're looking specifically to hire English-speaking Canadians as waiters. So there's definitely diverse
I
options.
think we can all throw in a Canadian accent.
I'm definitely applying in September. I'm Canadian adjacent, about 10 miles from the border, so I'm gonna play that card.
But I mean, exactly. The point is there's any wide array of different job opportunities depending on what you're looking for, language ability, time commitment.
We know somebody who does bicycle tours.
Bicycle tours is a big thing, yeah. Or Segway tours, I know somebody that did that. Or like historical site tours, like if you want to work at like Notre Dame or Sacré-Cœur.
Well,
I don't think anybody's working at Notre Dame for a while.
Well, they're not. Okay, yeah, maybe not that one. I had a friend that worked there a couple of years ago, but not anymore. But that's what I'm saying. But that's also another cool way in terms of a job that A, you get out of the bubble, B, you experience Paris, and you have to learn about it, is giving these city tours where you have to show tourists around, and then also you get to have the one up of like, le territoire cinéma, look at them taking pictures. Yes.
Okay, great. So you mentioned all of these historic places and sites in Paris. What do you guys do on the weekends?
Sleep.
What is the most exciting thing you do on the weekends? I mean, right now I know it's crunch time and a lot of exams and papers and finals, but when you have a bit more free time, what do you like to do?
I turned 26 last year, and once you reach 26, nothing is free anymore. And so I did a lot of research, and I found this list of things to do in Paris that was free. And so I went out and I was like, tuck, tuck, tuck. I was doing everything, and I think the most exciting thing I did, which is unfortunate now that it's unavailable, obviously, but I went up to the bell tower in Notre Dame, and I experienced that. And then I got these really cheap tickets to see an organ concert in the Notre Dame. It was like $20 to go in and have a concert. But if you Google free things to do for under 26 in Paris, there's so many different museums and so many different things that you can get into. You can go on top of Trocadero. Pretty much any building you can go on top of. and explore the different views of Paris. And so that was my most exciting thing, was doing really cheesy tourist things, which I've been here for 2 years, and see, we just sat next to the Eiffel Tower 20 minutes ago.
It's so close.
It's so close, and it's something that's cheesy, but I haven't gotten over it yet.
Yeah, still beautiful.
I'm a really physical person, so I like to go for runs through Paris, and I will actually just take my metro pass. Luckily, I'm 25, so I'm under that 26, and we get a discounted metro rate, and so it's half the price that you can pay yearly. So I get access to the RERs, all the trains, including the trams, and then the buses. So you can not only get pretty far outside, but we like to go to Fontainebleau and Barbizon, and there's this really cool park that is pretty large, actually, that has a lot of like bouldering, climbing rocks, and then we live right next to the Barbizon, and so we'll go and work out and run through Paris, and I do a lot of cultural things as well. I like going to certain museums, and I'm lucky because I am under 26, so I have that free admission, just to rub that in.
Thank you, appreciate it. I'm gonna be 27 in 2 months.
But I also really like the ballets, the operas, just hanging out. There's always a random concert through Paris. We were just on the Champs, like you said, but there was something happening behind us where we were listening to music. We didn't know what was happening, but it was happening. And so there's kind of a little bit of everything for everyone, whether you like to go out and do cultural things or artistic things, or even you can stay at home and watch Netflix. It's really...
And this weekend, actually, we were just in the aquarium of Paris. And so every blue moon, they will turn the entire aquarium into a club. And so we were there, and we were dancing next to jellyfish and a shark and just all kinds of things. And it was beautiful. And it was just really a random moment, I think, in Paris to go to the aquarium and go dancing.
Well, even nightlife is a little bit off, but like nightlife is interesting depending on which district you live in. You can live in a very like calm place, or you can live in a very popular place, but there's a little bit of bar from everywhere. There's a Scottish bar, and there's the Canadian pub, and there's multiple different actually Canadian pubs around Paris.
So the game bars, I thought this was really interesting. So I'm gonna jump on this real quick. No, but literally, it's like they have old and new consoles. They have like GameCubes, they have Nintendo 64s, they have like Sega Dreamcasts. One of them is in the fifth on Greenwich Town. And like they have video games, they have board games, like chess, Risk, all this kind of stuff.
Amazing.
So it's a really random thing, but it's also really cool. But bars and clubs on the other side, on the lazier part, for if you like food, I really like food. But there's this thing, I can't remember the exact name, something like Tournement Vin Quartier, something like that. And it's basically you go to 20 different restaurants from 20 different countries in the 20 different arrondissements of Paris, and it just takes you around the city. It's like, are you looking for like Vietnamese food? Are you looking for Mexican food? Are you looking for like Sudanese? And it's got all these great different restaurants across the city of different cuisine types. So for somebody like me who's not so physical and likes to eat,
you don't like to run?
No, I have shit splits.
Restaurants.
Yeah, exactly. The only running I'm doing is the front of the line at the buffet. But yeah, so yeah, no, restaurants, nightlife. There's any abundance of things of all different lifestyles. I know another thing that I do is I boulder. We were talking about Fontainebleau, which is the outdoor. I'm not very physical.
You climbing up to the cheeseburger?
Yeah, exactly. It's like like the carrot and the stick, like they hang the hamburger like at the top of the wall. Climbers up to fight. Yeah,
that's it.
But there's any number of rock climbing and bouldering gyms across the city. There's normal gyms.
They do random things as well.
There's swimming pools. There's public swimming pools that are across the city. I have a friend that
they do it in the Seine during the summer.
They do one in the Seine, yeah. But there's ones that are year round. There's also ice rinks. I have a friend that's a professional, like he's going to the Olympics for speed skating, and that's something he does. So
they turned the Grand Palais into a giant ice skating rink
in the winter. Yeah, that was probably the best 30-year.
It's like the biggest ice skating rink, like indoor ice skating rink in the world, I believe. And it was huge. And they had like this very interesting like polar bear sculpture in the middle that you had to go around, and a beautiful light show and like a live DJ. It was pretty epic.
Yeah.
So there's always something.
I was off on a cultural program during that time.
In India.
In India. So
Segueing into that, how convenient our next topic is.
So there's a lot of really great cultural programs that are, it's not required for any specific class, but because it's Europe, because we're so close to so many different places, it's an extension of your studies. And so I took a sustainable development course that was taught here at AUP, and then we spent a month in Oroville, India. And we were there the middle of December through the middle of January. And it was an incredible experience. I learned so much. It was the farthest east that I had ever flown, and I was there for a full month learning about sustainable development with about 20 different NGOs. And then towards the end, I was able to produce a communications-based project for a specific NGO there. And I didn't fully understand the communications side. This specific program was open to all majors. And I thought I had signed up for content writing, and it ended up being that I was managing their Instagram account. And I don't use social media at all, and I knew nothing about Instagram or Facebook or anything. But it was a great experience because so many of the students came together and helped me and taught me how to do this, how to get likes and all different kinds of things that I can't even tell you right now because I don't remember.
She had to learn about hashtagging.
I learned about hashtagging and you know, like tagging people in a post, and I sound really old, but it was a great experience because of that fact that all the AUP students kind of came together as a tight-knit community, and they helped me in so many ways complete my project. So.
What I think is cool with the cultural programs is that if you're in the class like Nicole was, you can actually apply for kudos. Not only do you get first dibs on the trip, and then they open up to the student body, but then you can, if you were in that class associated with the trip, you can get kudos, which is a helping hand, and you write an essay about why you need it, and the undergraduate and graduate student council member president will read it and give it a score, and then Randy, who's our head of finance, I'm not really actually sure what his title is, but he's the god of money.
Financial aid director.
Yeah. He's the keeper. He'll look at the financial aid, he's the only one, and he'll give a score, and you can get different trips at different percentages off. So you get 75% of one trip covered and then 10% of another. So it really opens up the opportunities to go if you can't afford it.
Yeah, no, and I'm so appreciative for the cultural program just because I think it's easy to forget that you're living in one of the main hubs of Europe when you're here. It doesn't feel like that different once you've settled in. And so the cultural program sort of reminds you that you can get out and see things. And when you can do it with your class and with a professor who knows where they're taking you, it's just so much more valuable and so much more of it's a richer experience that way. And I've gone to Italy 3 times in the last 6 months, twice with cultural programs because I was in the Italian classes. And it was just really, really cool because it was an opportunity to practice the Italian language, but also you get to live the experience of going with an Italian professor. So you're not going to all the super touristy areas. She's taking you to her favorite local spots and that kind of stuff. And I think one of my favorite AUP memories is a group of us renting Vespas on the island of Capri in Italy and just driving down the coast. And it was just like, wow, is this still a Lizzie McGuire movie? Like, what's going on here? I don't know. It's just one of those really random things where it's like, you know, what did I think of my college experience? And I think I was going to be riding a Vespa down the Amalfi Coast. No, but here I am. You know, so it's just cool experience.
Well, even if you don't do cultural programs, honestly, it's slightly off topic, but it's very relevant. It's super cheap to travel in Europe. So
traveling anywhere.
I mean, we went to Porto, Portugal for 5 days, and it was like 40 euros round trip from the Beauvais airport. And we also rented a scooter, and this is what brought it up, because we actually did blare the song while she's on the scooter on an external speaker down the street to Porto. So that totally happened. We didn't wear something. And but we went, and the food was cheap, and the beaches were beautiful. And we've been to Norway. We camped in the Arctic Circle in February for 2 weeks in a tent. I've been to Germany. We bought a last minute ticket to Berlin. Not even 24 hours later, we were in Berlin, and it was 30 euros round trip. And so it's just trains, buses, planes. It's all really easy to get around and to go to places. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did a week-long trip to Sicily for spring break by myself, and I think I flew round trip for about 100 euros, and then I had a week's worth of lodgings for about 90 euros, something like that. Which seem really cheap to me. I don't know if that is actually cheap or
This is
not.
actually a good question, and we're gonna have another webinar specifically dedicated to budgeting and financial aid. But while we're on the topic of budgeting,
Okay.
what do you guys, and how do you budget? How do you decide where to save money and what to save it on?
I think the biggest spender would be food.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
students that get really busy in their schedule and they run out of the house and then they're like, oh man, I'm gonna eat out this meal. I think just eating out is the biggest. I mean, on average, you go to anywhere, it's 20 euros for a meal. So I think not only food prepping, which is what I do heavily, we do heavily, but also finding the cheaper grocery stores. Because unfortunately, depending on where you live, you'll go into the closest store and that's not necessarily the cheapest. So it's a matter of taking the time and finding the cheapest prices. For instance, Auchan and Lidl are by far one of the cheapest stores that's accessible to living in the 16. And so, sometimes we'll get up on a Saturday morning and take 25, 30 minutes to go to the grocery store. But on average, everything is 50 cents to €1 cheaper per item. And so we save so much money going to a cheaper store. It takes more time. But when you have a granny cart, you can fit a lot of groceries in that thing. And we pack it in. So I think it's just a matter of taking the time to actually find and pay attention to the prices. And then if it's putting it in an Excel spreadsheet and mapping out how much money you have every month, I mean, that's something that's really, really helpful. But just keeping track and not just, constantly swiping your card, just paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Did you have everything you need in your apartment to cook?
Yes, so we found our apartment through the AUP housing database, and that is an incredible resource for students, and everyone on the housing department is an excellent team. So we found that apartment that was fully furnished, that came with pots, pans, sheets, everything that you needed for that apartment. So we got really lucky in that aspect that there was everything.
But also, this one, the roommate, also was a pack rat, who when she lived, so we actually lived apart. She was my student advisor, and we worked on SGA together. And we decided to live together.
I think within 2 months of knowing each other, we decided to move in together.
She went to India, and I had to move her stuff, and it took so long and so many boxes, and there's still stuff that she doesn't use, she hasn't touched, it's covering in dust.
I don't know what she's talking about, but I will say that when you find something specific, like chipotle peppers, it's hard to find here. But when you find chipotle peppers in adobo sauce, I'm the type of person that I want to buy 6 cans of them because I don't want to have to go back to the store. For instance, Auchan, the coffee that I like to buy is €1.50 cheaper per bag than it is at the Carrefour next to our house. So I like to buy 6 bags of coffee.
You're just prepared.
So that I'm prepared, and in case of an apocalyptic situation,
That's right.
we're ready for months. That's all.
What do you do?
I think being an undergrad is a little bit different. I think grad students have a little bit more time in terms of class schedule, depending on what you're doing. Depending on what you're doing, I could be wrong. They're looking at me, I'm nuts, so I'm gonna go ahead and retract that comment and just speak to my own experience here. But as an undergrad, I think when you first get here, like I said, I came here directly out of high school. Time management, not really a thing. Money management, again, also not really a thing.
Okay.
Cooking, I was actually pretty all right at. I cooked a lot first semester, which was odd, because I've gotten progressively worse. For example, this last week during finals week, I'm not proud of this, but I've definitely Uber Eats ordered something at least once a day.
I have never done Uber Eats.
Well, see,
Good job.
good for you. Like, you're a better human than me for it. However, as somebody who is not good at time management, I feel like what's very common, it's funny because I was walking through the library on Sunday evening, and it was just like all the trash cans were just a collection of Uber Eats bags, just because that's what everybody's doing. Again, living in Paris has its little quirks, and I think restaurants are always open or they're always cheap. Uber Eats can sometimes be cheaper than actually going to a restaurant. But I definitely think that's a money trap for sure, just because it's so much easier to just order food. But I know I live out by the 13th, so I go to a supermarket called Tongfa, which is a Chinese supermarket, so it makes me feel like I'm at home. But also, it's just a lot cheaper. Like, I can buy like a half a kilo of like shredded pork or something for like €3.
You can buy shredded pork.
Yeah, it's a thing, and it's like €3. Whereas like you can get like 4 pork chops or something at like
We're
Frankie
gonna
for like
need
7.
the address.
I'll give you the address for sure later. Like, so I think for me, the biggest thing is I work a lot, and I have a conscious plan to set aside a certain amount of what I make per week into a savings account so that I've always got a cushion for myself. And then it's just making sure that I live within those bounds and sort of, for me, the biggest thing when it came to budgeting for the first time was like breaking it down into small a piece as I can. Instead of being like, how much do I have monthly or how much do I have yearly? It's like, you just keep breaking that down until it's like, all right, this is how much I have per meal. Like if I go out to lunch, this is how much I can spend. And living within that just becomes a lot easier and becomes habitual. And
There's also a really great app called Mint, and if you download it, you can attach your credit card or your debit card, and it will actually section off into different categories. How much money you're spending on food, how much money you're spending on transportation, and that way you can set up your own budget, and then based on your actual spending, you can see if you've reached those goals, if you've surpassed those goals. So if you're a little bit worried, you can always do that, and then you download it on your phone, whip it up, like open it up. And it's a great app.
Well, and actually, no, I think it's a very good point because I think living in a world-class city, I think there's a lot of like unforeseen like little costs, expenses that you're gonna have to pay. Like when you move into your apartment for the first time, you don't always have everything set up.
Oh no, like, you gotta buy salt, pepper, oil, like different
like I had to buy like pillow covers, like blankets.
So many different things.
Just like random things that you never think about. So I think for me, that was also a pretty big killer, that I would be like, I would budget before, like I would have to pay rent or something, or, and then like a bunch of random stuff would come up. Like at the beginning of the semester, I always would forget to budget for books. I would forget to budget for insurance costs for like outside, like it's just all these little random expenses that pop in and out. And I think another big part of budgeting is like Nicole and Cody were talking about earlier, is taking advantage of the whole under 26 thing. I think most undergrads specifically, there's very few undergrads that fall outside that category. And so movie tickets are cheaper. Restaurants have like student menus that are like €8 or €9.
For transportation.
But
transportation is cheaper.
There are also so many events on campus that provide free food and free drinks and free entertainment. That's, at least once or twice a week, something lively is happening on campus.
We're entertaining as heck, and we're all on student.
And we know because we all work in student government.
Exactly.
So there's always karaoke, open mic night, trivia. There's an event happening with the journalism ASM.
We put on a mean Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we hosted about 600 people for
Christmas party.
American Thanksgiving, if you specify.
30 turkeys later.
What are your roles in student government exactly, and what do you help organize on campus?
So Fio and I share the social director position. He's undergrad, I'm the graduate position.
Right. For the past year, we're now both outgoing.
We are, yes. So we organize events specifically for grad students, undergrads, and then we come together for events like the Christmas party, Thanksgiving,
multimedia gala.
The multimedia gala, which was a great exposition of student work. So we do a lot of things on campus that provide entertainment, provide career knowledge, different events. We did a grad trip out to the Loire Valley. We went to a beautiful chateau and then did a wine degustation and spent the whole day out in the Loire Valley and came back to Paris. We've also done a boat brunch, a few game nights here and there, and then just different networking, career-based skills as well.
Yeah.
And then I'm the communications director for the grads, so I actually work quite a bit with the undergrad as well, and we kind of split time. She does a lot of posters for both events, but I will spend time emailing both parties, undergrad and graduates, about the certain events. Currently, we're helping plan graduation actually for the student body, and so I sent out an email. Current Students Day, I run the Instagram and the Facebook. I believe Sophia, my counterpart, is undergrad. She does a little bit more. There's obviously a larger student body for undergraduate, but we're kind of the main hub for information. A lot of students will email us and ask questions about events that are happening, if they can get involved. We're hosting TEDx. It's coming to AUP, and so we're helping out with that event and bartending, running tables, security, that kind of stuff. So we all kind of wear all certain hats within the community.
So what are other ways that students can get involved in student communities?
So there's a lot of clubs on campus. There's about 30, I'd say. And what's great about AUP is that if you're really passionate about a specific topic and a specific type of club that's not already on campus, you can get 3 students together with 1 faculty member, and then you can get sponsored through the student government to get funding. Most recently, we've had the Raw Vegan Club that just started, I think in the spring or the fall. We've also had the Veterans Club that was created. So it's
Nordic Club.
The Nordic Club. So
The gaming club.
there's a lot of wiggle room in the budget for you to start events and create your own club. You can also get involved in ASN,
Which is the student media. So we actually have a very large program that's journalism based. It's grown so much that we actually have an entire floor dedicated to it in our new building. So there's 3 different platforms. There's the video, which is you go out, you plan your video, you shoot it, you edit it together, and you mix it down. It goes to YouTube. Then you also have the magazine, which is produced once a semester. We have a fall and a spring issue, and it's all done. The illustrations, the photography, the articles are all done by students, the layout. And then finally you have the online, where it has like investigative, you can do opinion, there's fashion, there's travel, there's so many different subcategories that you can write for. And it's mostly student-led, there's a faculty attached to it, but it's student-led elected positions that students step up and do and teach their fellow students these skills. And then what I would say is we definitely have sports on campus as well. We have equestrian out at Versailles. We have futsal, basketball, volleyball, dance, and if there's something that you want to do but we don't have, you can work with Ashkan, who's our head of sports, as a faculty, and he'll find you something outside of Paris. If you want to do karate and you want to keep that up, he'll find you a club outside to continue that passion.
There's also the yoga and running club. Separate, the yoga club and running club.
Yeah, you don't do yoga and run.
Yeah, then I do.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about support on campus. So you mentioned student government and clubs and organizations. Do you feel that you have enough support on campus with both academics and student life? And where do you go if you need help? Have you had a lot of instances where you needed assistance from somebody? And
I think it's different for us because we work in student government, that we know where everything is. All of us have been or will be a student advisor as well for a semester, where we help students come to campus that first week.
that's actually one example of
That's what I was
support
going to say. I
for
think
students.
from the get-go, everyone's very prepared with orientation. I know it's kind of like word vomit with information at the first week, but there is literally a person for every different type of need. So there's somebody that can help you with banking, someone that can help you with housing, someone with health, so someone can help you tutor. So within every need, there is someone that represents AUP, whether it's a student or an actual faculty member that can help you guide through any problem that you might have.
And I don't think anybody could be a better representation of the success of the student advisor program than you two, given that. I mean, Nicole was Cody's student advisor.
And now
live together.
And now
she
here
will
they
be
are.
her own student advisor.
Yes.
Exactly. No, but definitely for sure. I think the same goes for undergrad. I think the grad orientation, we do a little bit more, what's the word, hectic, just because you guys have so much more that you have to get dealt with before the school year starts. But for undergrads, it's really so cohesive and so slowed down almost that it's like all of this stuff that would otherwise be overwhelming, getting your phone set up, getting your Navigo, getting your bank open, all of this stuff is taken care of. Your apartment is set up before you get here. That's a luxury that the grads don't have. But undergrads, you come here, you have an apartment already furnished, set up, all the paperwork is out of the way by the time you're on the ground. You just come pick up the keys.
You have a student waiting in your apartment to show
Yeah,
you around.
exactly. You have a student advisor who is familiar with your neighborhood to show you your cheapest grocery stores and all that stuff, which you will not get as soon as you move to your own apartment. Nobody's waiting there for you with all the recommendations. But I'd say that aside, I mean, your student advisor is somebody you have for your entire first semester and longer, depending on how you choose to keep in touch with them. You have the student
Or move in
government,
with them.
or move in with them, yeah, depending on your situation. There's a lot of help from the faculty. I'd say most of the staff, like Kevin For, Mathieu, Jan, yeah, they're all just these Swiss Army knives of human beings that can just do everything. So if you're not sure who to go to, you go to one of them, and they can either fix it or point you to somebody else from the get-go. And so it's never really like there's a wrong person to go to, because it's such a small school that everybody can link you. And for the most part, when we're giving campus tours, I call the third and fourth floors the powerhouse floors, because it's 4 major offices back to back to back. So even if you do go to the wrong office, you're shifting like 2 feet to the left or the right to find the right office.
One was great with those people. So I know in the States, I had no idea where my dean of students was. Couldn't tell you even today. And here, I'm on the floor with him. I walked into his office 3 times today, just talking about 3 different things. And he was eating lunch, and he was totally happy to help me and have a conversation with me. So it's not just that they're there, but they're accessible. And if they're not at that moment, like Fio said, they'll either send you to somebody who is and who can fix the problem, or they will make an appointment to meet with you, usually later that day. And even Kevin is amazing. We've had a couple of students, unfortunately, knowing the stories, had to go to the hospital. They didn't speak French. He was right there to go with them, to be there to help them for whatever reason that they had to go. And so not only are you supported by the staff, but they really do care. And I've been stopped on the street by even my teachers before. It's such a small class. I was giving a tour, and literally my teacher and my advisor stopped me and was like, "We need to talk really quick." Had like a 10-minute conversation with me, and I had to like sprint back to my group, because they just know your face. Everybody knows who you are, and the teachers really do pay attention to if you're doing well or not and how to help you. So it's not just faculty support, but it's definitely teacher support as well.
And it's really a cheesy statement, but because we all do tours, and we all bring people around campus, but the way that I love to describe AUP is that it's such a tight-knit community. We have, what, 1,400 students? 1,200 students, okay. Including grads. And so it's such a tight-knit community where, like Cody just said, you can go onto the floor of the Dean of Student Affairs and talk to them. And you can be on the street, and people know you by name, and you're in such a tight-knit community where everyone is there in a support system for each other. And then you're also in the massive international environment of Paris. So in different countries in the US, for instance, if you go to that small university, you're generally in the middle of nowhere. But what's unique about AUP is that you have that intimate community, but then you're in a major city like Paris, and you have so many resources outside of school, so many cultural opportunities and study opportunities. So it's just a really unique environment to be in.
And speaking of the environment, so we do have an urban campus, and a lot of students who come to AUP as freshman students or as graduate students, as transfer students, are moving to Paris for the first time or are coming to Paris for the first time. And our campus is located in the very center of Paris. So how did you find your experience moving to this, not just to Paris, but our campus in particular, because it's smack in the middle of the city?
Going in line with the cheesy notion, we're right next to the Eiffel Tower. And so it's incredible to be in the heart of Paris, be along the river. And now that we have our new building on the quay, that has the entire side has a view of the river, and it's just a beautiful area. We have the traditional Parisian architecture. We're close to so many different cultural opportunities, and it's just gorgeous to walk around. And sometimes I don't take the bus home; I'll walk 45 minutes home because it's such a pretty area. And aesthetically, I enjoy walking around.
And also. Paris is just such a small, compact city for like a world-class international tourism hub that no matter where you're living, I don't think you would ever be on the metro for more than 45 minutes to an hour to get anywhere inside the city. And even to get outside the city, I don't think, unless you're really, really trekking it, I don't think you're going much further than an hour and a half, which is, I think, a testament to the size of the city. I've biked the majority of the city. I've skateboarded lengths of it, limed like electric scooters, or even walked, like Nicole was saying. I've definitely walked home, and that's like an hour and 20-minute walk, and I probably live just about as far across the city as you can go without being on the edges.
Yeah, I mean, same. I think the one thing that I learned when I first moved to Paris was I decided to take an apartment just on the other side of the Champ de Mars from the school. It's about a 20-minute walk. And I liked it at first, and then I realized that there's so much more to Paris, and I spent so much time in the 7th already that I wanted to be on the outside. And I've said it before, there's so many different districts and things to do. You have like the 1st to the 6th, which is really just a cultural hub. It's the center of Paris. There's a lot of bars, there's a lot of speakeasies, there's a lot of museums to go to, so it's pretty popular there. And then you have, you know, the rest of it that's kind of a hit and miss with neighborhoods mixed with that kind of same vibe / neighborhoods. And you have really calm areas, and it's just really whatever you want it to be, you can move into it, which is really great. And I really enjoy being able to our bus goes right by the Eiffel Tower every morning, and you can walk home pretty easily. And I think the longest I've walked was about an hour, and it took me all the way across Paris, and it's not difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. So one last question. For students who will be coming to join us in Paris in a few months, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them? What tips would you give them from your experience moving to Paris? Maybe you forgot to bring something that you really miss from back home, or just, you know, practical advice on how to deal with people or student life. What do you think?
I think there's so much to give advice about, but I can't pinpoint one thing. I think that we were actually talking about Kevin Ford, which is our dean of students, about this earlier, about safety in Paris. And while Paris is very safe, there's still a need for students to be aware of their surroundings. There's a lot of students that are coming that have never been in that situation. They live in a very safe neighborhood. They don't have to worry about it. And I mean, there are areas of Paris that are a little darker. They're a little bit more sketchy to be at night. And students don't realize that. So really getting familiar with the city on that terms, whether you talk to your student advisor when you get here, or you have a conversation with somebody who's been here, even staff, learning that. I think that I would tell most people to leave most of their stuff at home, honestly. Like, really just bring clothes, and even here you can find cheap places to buy clothes, because you're going to want to. You're going to want to anyways. And a lot of things that you wear in the States, you're wherever, you don't wear here. I remember I dragged an entire suitcase that I ended up getting rid of because I just never wore it. But bring your favorite comfort foods as well. You can find it here, like mac and cheese if you really want it, but it's really expensive.
Yeah, I mean, we do ironically live down the street from one of the only all-American import stores that I know of in Paris.
Oh my God, though. I made pumpkin bread, and it cost me like 40 euros to make pumpkin bread. It was imported canned pumpkin, and it was like 6 euros a can.
Yeah, expensive.
But it was worth it because it tasted good, but it'll never do it again.
Yes. So it's a matter of just really looking at what you're bringing and realizing that if you're here for a semester, a year, or for 4 years, you're going to want to take stuff back. And it's really expensive, no matter where you are, to ship or to bring it on an airplane. And so the less you have, not only is it easier to move, but it's easier for you to take things back whenever you travel back to where you're coming from. And you're going to pick up things from all over the world that you're going to want to buy and take back.
If I could do it all over again, I would only take 1 suitcase of clothes and 1 suitcase packed full of like hot sauce and like, I brought things like, you know, like extra socks and t-shirts, thinking that it's going to be cheaper because I went to Costco. No. I would have totally brought back so much more popcorn, because unfortunately the French don't really do popcorn very well. That's my only tip. If you like popcorn, bring your own.
I would say my advice is very different.
You mean not food related?
Not food related. I would say my biggest thing is that patience is just like such an important thing, especially when you first get here. I think one thing that the French understand very, very well is that there's always more stuff to do, and so sometimes you gotta just call it a day and relax. That's why they still have the 35-hour work week. Like, it's a very valuable lesson to be learned, and I think especially for people from countries like the US or East Asian countries like Korea, Japan, China, where things are 24 hours all the time. You can always go places and it's done like immediate. France just doesn't work like that. And the sooner you accept that and you're willing to just wait it out and relax and just wait for things to play out the way they need to, the sooner you'll be able to just enjoy your experience here instead of constantly worrying about, like, when is my visa appointment going to be rescheduled? When is my bank account going to be open? When do I get my credit card? There's always an alternate solution,
When am I going to get the bill when I'm out at a restaurant?
Exactly. Like, this is such a, it's funny because it's
You have
such
to
a
learn to
big
take the
thing.
time.
Like, it causes
Enjoy
people,
it.
like, the amount of people that I've talked to that are like, it causes me anxiety trying to figure out how to pay my bill at a French cafe because you can't leave them down and you gotta wait for them to bring it to you. It's like, well, just wait then. Just sit.
Sit back and relax.
It's so funny.
Drink your coffee.
I remember I went out with a friend and we went to dinner and a movie and we went out for Mexican. We got just one thing, it was really fast, and then it took us 45 minutes to get the bill and pay the bill. And I was like, no, you don't understand. My movie started 5 minutes ago. Like, I need to pay and I need to go. But we didn't plan appropriately to get there in enough time to allot for a 2-hour meal. We thought we could be in and out in an hour, and that is not.
Forget about a 2-hour meal. It's more like a 2-hour coffee. I mean, you come to any cafe in Paris and you're like, hey, can I have a coffee? You're not leaving for the next hour.
No, I had someone
You're
argue
stuck.
with me. They were like, no, you can't leave. Like, we want you to stay and enjoy. I was like, what do you mean? I want to pay.
Slow down and enjoy.
But it's a very real aspect of life here, and I think especially as a college student in a new country, it's so easy to get overwhelmed by all of the things that need to be done. But I think the most important thing is to have trust in the fact that AUP has every interest to keep you sane and legal and safe, and they have you covered. So you trust on that, you lean back on that safety net, and
We were gonna let it go.
yeah, lean back on that. All right, 12-year-old jokes aside, lean back on a safety net. Sort of lean into the slowness of life here and just relax.
Well, I think I came up with a really good one actually while we were talking, and it's getting lost in Paris. It's don't be afraid to hop on a train, not know where you're going, and get off and enjoy. If you live in the 14th and you want to go up to the 18th, just do it. If you want to get on a bus and see where it leads you, do it. It's such a compact city. It looks big, but it's really not. And if you get lost, you find the coolest things. It's the coolest things I've ever seen was when I ended up at the wrong metro stop and I started actually walking around and looking around.
And even long distance travel aside across the city, I think one of the most interesting, like, I had a moment where, like, what you were talking about earlier, Cody, in terms of like why did I do this move? Because you're gonna have those moments. These moments of just like nothing is working out because the French bureaucracy has 17 different forms to do the one thing that you need to do. Or, you have to pay that one bill, but French banks are closed on the weekend, so you can't pay the bill. All this kind of stuff. But what I did was I went for a walk around my neighborhood. Like, it's not, I didn't travel far out. I've been living in this neighborhood for about 6 months, and I took a walk down this series of side streets, and I found all of these random cool little shops. And I've been living here for 6 months, and I was like, how had I never found this? And I think Paris is a great place for that. It's just there's always these little things that you're never quite paying attention. And as soon as you take a minute to, like I said earlier, slow down and just relax, you find all of those really cool nicks and knacks that comes with a city like Paris.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for sharing that information with us and your experience with us. For our incoming students, if you have any questions as you're preparing to move to Paris, if you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to contact us in the admissions office or contact your admissions counselor directly. And we hope to hear from you soon and also see you soon on campus.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.